how the people are doing. So, well, this video, I actually wanted to make this a very long time ago, but let's just say certain things came up and I couldn't. Now, I get the feeling that a lot of people might not really be interested in these two devices all that much, probably because, they're kind of old, if you think about it. Both these phones came out a fair bit of time ago. I only recently got my hands on the Find X7 Ultra. But well, I got nothing better to do, and this is the only reason I need to make videos, so here we go. Now with the selfie cameras, here's the deal. With the Xiaomi 14 Ultra and the Find X7 Ultra, both of them have 4K 30, which is fantastic. Great that we're getting good selfie video adoption across the board on a number of cameras now, but I don't really think the quality is up there, especially with the Xiaomi. As per my experience goes, it just isn't all that good. But, however, maybe things have improved. We'll have to see. I'll let you guys know soon enough. With the Find X7 Ultra, I have no idea. I'll tell you guys soon enough once again. And, well, here's the thing. The Xiaomi doesn't have selfie portrait video. The Find X7 Ultra, on the other hand, now this one, oh yes, it can actually do portrait video with the front cameras. But of course, there is a bit of a downside. We get only 1080p 30 with portrait mode, which is unfortunate. I feel like 4K 30 should be easy enough. Like, it's not a processing problem, right? Like, these are the most powerful devices, and I have no idea why the Xiaomi doesn't even give us the option, or is the option hidden somewhere? I'm not entirely certain, but I haven't really found it. If there is an option, by all means, let me know in the comments. I'll check it out later. But well, as far as I know, we don't really have a selfie portrait video on the Xiaomi. And of course, I'll let you know how exactly the Find X7 Ultra fares. So, selfie video as well. It's a little interesting. So, it turns out the Xiaomi 14 Ultra has gotten a little bit better. You see, before, it used to be horrible. By that I mean, it'd be chock full of grain. That's all you'd get. And yeah, that's pathetic, as you can probably tell. But it's definitely gotten a lot better. Not the best, but definitely better. Now, the Find X7 Ultra, on the other hand, now this one, it's actually quite nice from the get-go, no doubt about that. There's very little noise, but also I do see some smearing happening. I'm not sure if that's because of some form of motion blur or if it's noise reduction that's causing it, but it's definitely there. There's also higher saturation and slightly higher contrast going on, so there are some differences, but I don't think either of these are unusable at this point in time, which is obviously really good news. The audio quality, on the other hand, is a whole different ballgame, because the Find X7 Ultra goes for an absolute truckload of noise reduction. It kind of works, given just how much noise was in the background. It was removing a lot of it, but I do think there was a tiny bit of muffling of my voice happening as well. Not the worst thing in the world, definitely not as insane as the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, which, yes, my voice was crisp, about as crisp as it could get, but there was also so much background noise. Personally, I kind of prefer the Find X7 Ultra in this case. And for portrait video, of course, my stance on this is the exact same as it has always been. It's just not good enough yet. There are problems with the edge detection, and even a singular frame of problem with the edge detection can just make the video look so amateur that it makes no sense to use it. That's just my take on it. You may not agree, I get it. Portrait video can be fun for the most casual videography experience, perhaps, but honestly, I don't think it's worth using, not yet. I know there will come a time when most phones will be able to do it near flawlessly, almost like with photography portrait mode, but that's not the case yet. Now for 4K 30 with the main cameras, as far as I can tell, the Find X7 Ultra's colors are looking really natural. Now, given that it was a bit of an overcast situation and so on and so forth, I think it's doing a tremendous job. It's not giving us that typical processed, brightened look that you get from a lot of smartphones. The Xiaomi is really good at that as well, but I do think that the greens in particular, they have a lot of bluish tinge in there, I guess. But the Find X7 Ultra is balancing it out perfectly. I really like it. And I think it gives you, by far, some of the most realistic looking 4K 30 video that I've seen. The Xiaomi was already incredible in that regard, but Find X7 Ultra is doing exceptionally well. There's a lot of positive reaction coming from my end over here, because I didn't expect the Oppo to do this well. Anywho, let us move right on over to the ultra-wide camera. Now, the performance is very similar. I do think that the Xiaomi just inherently pulls ahead because it has a much wider field of view. That does give it a bit of an advantage because, it is an ultra-wide camera. In very literal sense. Not exactly as wide on the Find X7 Ultra. I don't think any other smartphone that I've used this year has that much of a wide camera. And yes, it was raining when I took this video, which is why you can probably see some raindrops happening both on the lens and also in the screen. Those are not artifacts or anything. I'm not even sure how YouTube's gonna handle this, but whatever the case, that's just how it went. Can't really control the weather now, can I? But of course, because of that very reason, I can't really do proper dynamic range tests outdoors with the sunlight. There is no sunlight. I think that's been the case for like a month or so. I personally love it, but of course, when it comes to camera comparisons of any kind, it's gotta be indoors now. And as you can tell, the Find X7 Ultra, it's definitely got some blown highlights happening, even though outside it's just regular overcast situation, not sunlight or anything. So this is a difficult one. However, I do think that the Find X7 Ultra is not having any issues. Also, this kind of doubles as a focusing test, as you could probably tell. There is a little bit of pulsing action happening that I can see, but of course, these are very, very small subjects and I'm really whipping the camera around, so maybe that is to be expected to a certain extent at least. Then of course, similar situation with the ultra-wide camera, and you can really see just how blown out the highlights are right there in the background. But well, at least we have a proper test in case of overcast situations, right? Now here we have the Xiaomi 14 Ultra in the same exact situation, and it's kind of performing almost exactly the same. I do believe that the exposure might shift a little bit more as opposed to the Find X7 Ultra, but I also think that the focusing works a little bit better. It racks a little bit better is the best way to say it. It doesn't pulse as much, far as I can tell at least. At the end of the day, I didn't really find any real issues between the two. If I had to pick one, I'd say the Xiaomi takes a slight lead, given that its focusing works out just a touch better. The dynamic range is fantastic on both. But with the ultra-wide camera, things are a little bit different. You see now, what the Xiaomi is trying to do is essentially just control the highlights as much as possible. It is much more under control and the roll-off is really smooth as opposed to the ultra-wide on the Find X7 Ultra. But there's definitely a few crush shadows here and there, and when it does expose for the shadows, it actually blows out the highlights exactly the same as the Find X7 Ultra. So I guess it's similar if you think about it, logically, but it's just a different approach on both. I don't think either of these is wrong in the way they handle the situation. It's just different. Now then, for versatility, you're not gonna have any issues on the Find X7 Ultra or the Xiaomi for that matter, because both of these phones come with multiple telephoto cameras. Find X7 Ultra, it does have a 2x, just don't use it. It doesn't really work particularly well. There are going to be some problems with the artifacting and the sharpening and all that jazz. It's much better to just go straight for 3x, because that is a medium zoom range and it's optical. And secondly, you have the 6x, which is also optical, and it does work exceptionally well, as you can guess. Now for the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, it is a very similar situation. I think that the Xiaomi's overall balance of the exposure is maybe a little too low. It's underexposing essentially. I don't know why I said it like that, but it does have a 2x option. I would recommend not to use it once again, because for some reason, on almost every single smartphone, the sensor crop doesn't really translate with similar quality in videography as it does in photos. So that's just how it is. You do get a 3.2x specifically on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra and a 5x on the Xiaomi as well. So as I mentioned, not gonna be a problem on either. Now then, 4K 60, and yes, it was pouring at this point and I was soaking wet, but of course, the camera comparison, it takes precedence, doesn't it? Well, here's what I can tell you. The Xiaomi 14 Ultra, it has this high dynamic range mode that it can use in 4K 30. It's an SDR, not exactly Dolby Vision or anything, we'll get to that. But what you do get is basically slightly better dynamic range when you're shooting 4K 30, but you don't have that option in 4K 60 or 8K or anything as such. So I don't think it's really affecting anything here. If anything at all, I think the Xiaomi has better contrast as opposed to the Find X7 Ultra, which does look a little too flat. However, moving on to the ultra-wide camera, and it's a very similar situation. I think the Find X7 Ultra's contrast has actually improved a little, and I also believe that the Find X7 Ultra tends to maybe saturate a little too much, especially with 4K 60. But once again, the differences are fairly minute, and with the updates that the Xiaomi has had, it's actually gotten much better with 4K 60. But of course, I'm not gonna just leave it at that. Hell no. I gotta do the dynamic range test, same as 4K 30, and as you can immediately tell, in 4K 60, the dynamic range does go down a little. You are getting more crushed shadows as opposed to what we were seeing previously. Maybe it's because I changed the subject. It could be because I am seeing better highlight preservation now on the Find X7 Ultra. Then with the ultra-wide camera, I think this time we are kind of getting the worst of both worlds. We are getting slightly crushed shadows, but the highlights in the background are also more or less completely blown out. So yeah, that's kind of odd to see. I had expected slightly better dynamic range from the Find X7 Ultra, but maybe, the situation is very difficult to say the least, so it is to be expected. Now with the Xiaomi, it is behaving very similar to the Oppo. Hell, it's actually giving us more crushed shadows as opposed to the Find X7 Ultra. I don't really expect that, to be honest. I had expected the Xiaomi to have gotten to the point where it can just give us good dynamic range whether or not we have HDR mode enabled, but turns out the dynamic range on the Xiaomi does take a hit. Only thing is that it's gotten better to the point that you'll only see these differences when you're shooting in extreme situations like these. Now with the ultra-wide camera, I think overall the Find X7 Ultra and the Xiaomi 14 Ultra both are performing almost exactly the same. There's not really a whole lot of difference. I do see a little bit more grain perhaps on the Xiaomi in certain instances, but again, not a big deal, not a massive difference, not earth-shattering enough to really bother with it. With the main camera, however, I didn't really expect the difference to be seen there, but definitely the Find X7 Ultra was doing a better job with dynamic range. But of course, that's not all. The Xiaomi 14 Ultra has so much more to offer. It's honestly crazy. So right here, what we have is something called Master Cinema Mode. This basically takes video in a flatter profile, and essentially, you're getting something in between log video, which is completely flat and kind of difficult to work with under certain situations, and regular Rec 709 video that you'd get from just shooting auto 4K 30. And you can color grade it quite nicely. Case in point right here, I mean, this barely took any time at all. It was so easy to use, and I mean, look at everything that is being maintained so well. It's a breeze, honestly. Like, Master Cinema Mode is one of my favorite camera modes in a very long time, and the fact that Xiaomi provides it, the fact that it has some amount of processing that goes into it despite going for a flatter profile overall, I think it's fantastic, and I think it definitely deserves a lot of attention, which it does not get for some reason. The reason I say this is because the log video from the Xiaomi 14 Ultra is good. It's alright, to say the least. But the problem is, I think you can tell right now, I underexpose this video quite a lot, way more than I would personally want to, but you can still see that the highlights in the background, they are blown out. All I could offer was to maybe try and get a smooth roll off, make it look nice, but to be honest, when I tried to control it, it started to get artifacted, and that was a bit of a problem. So this was the best I could do. A little too bright for my personal taste. I would have preferred it to be a little bit more smooth and a little bit less in your face, I guess, because it's kind of detracting from the subject. Now luckily, I did manage to take another Master Cinema shot, which is in a very similar situation, as you can tell, as the previous log mode. It's not the exact same, obviously. I didn't really mean to use this at all, but well, it's good enough to drive my point home. I mean, you can tell immediately that it is handling the highlight roll off better than the log video was. It's visible right here, and it is very apparent in the color grade itself. Like, look at how smooth and buttery it looks. It does not detract from the subject nearly enough. It's not too in your face, not overly bright. It's maintaining the gradage, and it is so much easier to color grade as well, because the log video from the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, it's very good, once again, very handy when you just want complete granular control. But the little bit of processing that I'm assuming goes into Master Cinema Mode just makes it so much nicer to deal with, and it prevents a lot of issues that you might run into when you're just going complete granular. Just something to keep in mind as well. But now let us move on to something that people who are not interested in color grading or anything as such would care about. This is super stable video on both, and these are also the 1x shots. I'd say both are looking fairly nice. The Xiaomi does seem to be underexposing a touch too much. Some of the shadows are just completely crushed on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. That does not look as nice as it could, and the Find X7 Ultra is essentially proof of that. Now with the ultra-wide cameras, I'd say now the Find X7 Ultra is oversaturating once again, similar to what it was doing with 4K 60. Quite interesting to see that happen again. But the Xiaomi is underexposing a little, but it's not all that bad. And stabilization across the board is very, very similar. You can see even with Super Stable Video, both are kind of letting in a few jerks because I was running around with them almost, but they're handling the situation more than well enough. Now then, for HDR video, this is Dolby Vision on both, transcoded to SDR. The problem with the Xiaomi 14 Ultra is that, yes, it's not handling the exposure as well as the Find X7 Ultra, but it's a minor difference. The issue is that you can't really, I guess, convert Dolby Vision to SDR on the smartphone. At least I haven't found a way to do it. I just did this in the editor itself. It's easy enough, but if you want something that can just be handled on the smartphone itself, well then the Find X7 Ultra is the way to go. Plain and simple. Now then, 8K video. So, see, there's a little issue on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, as you can tell. It doesn't have particularly good stabilization with 8K. It's gotten a lot better. It used to be far worse, to the point that you couldn't even use it. I mean, even at this point, I wouldn't say you should really be walking around with it, but it's better. Much better than what it used to be. The Find X7 Ultra, on the other hand, this one just, it intrigues me, to say the least, because it doesn't have 8K. I think this is the only Android device that I have at this moment which does not give you 8K video on any of their cameras. That is wild. The concept is wild. But let me tell you this much, it doesn't matter in this comparison, and you'll see exactly why soon enough. But before that, let me really show you why the Xiaomi 14 Ultra is known for its versatility. So this right here is 8K with the ultra-wide cameras, and with the ultra-wide camera, you do get really good stabilization. As you can tell, I'm just walking around real nice. I'm not really trying all that hard to stabilize myself, but it just works well. I wish we had this kind of stabilization with the main cameras, but we really don't, which is very unfortunate. And now, once again, we have 8K, this time with the 3x zoom. See, here's the problem that I have with the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. It goes balls to the walls crazy with the number of options you get with 8K. A complete opposite in terms of the approach, even, as opposed to the Oppo Find X7 Ultra, which doesn't have 8K at all. But the problem is that it's unoptimized, really unoptimized, especially with the main camera. Like, why do we not have stabilization on the main camera, but we get the options for 3x and 5x? That doesn't make any sense. Why not dedicate your resources to give us good stabilization on the main camera and just don't give us 3x and 5x 8K? No one's really going to use that. But now it is time for the details to see. This is where things are going to be very, very interesting. So what we do here is simple. We're going to take a still shot for both of these, basically on a tripod, and then we're going to punch it to 500% in post to see exactly how well the details are preserved. As of right here, we have 4K 30 with the main camera, 500% crop, and what I can tell you is this. The Xiaomi does seem to have a little bit of sharpening action going on. You can kind of see it in effect on some of the edges, but it's not that big a difference, to be entirely honest. Find X7 Ultra is actually taking a really nice approach. It's not sharpening all that much, and I get it. At 500% crop, obviously you're gonna see the most minute differences. That's the point. But see, this is where things get interesting. So this is with 8K on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. I mean, you guys already saw how it looked. This exact situation looked with 4K 30 on both phones, right? Well, let's crop into this and see exactly how much of an improvement it is in details. That is the whole point, is it not? Well, whatever the point might be, what I can tell you is that we don't really see any major increase in detail. If anything, I feel like the sharpening has gone down, which I guess to an extent is a good thing, but considering the fact that you're not really getting more detail and you're completely losing out on stabilization on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, well, again, it's gotten a little bit better, but it's still not as good as 4K 30, so why even use 8K on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra? That's the dilemma. I'm going to present you with this incredible question right now. Would you rather pick the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, which has 8K just for the main cameras, but it doesn't really give you any benefits, or would you rather just go with the Find X7 Ultra, which doesn't even have the possibility of 8K, but it has just as good 4K, and its 4K, as you can tell, stacks up with the 8K that you're getting from the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. Quite the conundrum, is it not? Anyways, let's move on to the ultra-wide camera, and see, this is a bit of an odd situation. With 4K 60 and even super stable video, we saw the Find X7 Ultra really oversaturating, but with 4K 30 specifically, it seems to handle colors much better. Anyways, cropping all the way in, and it's very similar to the main camera. You get more sharpening on the Xiaomi, and you get a slightly more organic look on the Find X7 Ultra. Hell, if anything, I prefer the Find X7 Ultra because it is maintaining the natural realistic colors instead of really saturating it a little too much. But then the Xiaomi so lovingly provides us with 8K. We gotta check that out, right? Let's face it, we all know at this point that there's not gonna be any differences. And that's precisely the case. Look, I'll tell you this much. With 8K, with the ultra-wide camera at the very least, you do get less sharpening, whilst also maintaining almost similar levels of detail. Being completely honest here, I still don't see the point in using 8K at all on any of the cameras for the Xiaomi 14 Ultra because you don't really get proper benefits for it. This is also another example here. So this is 3x on both phones. 8K on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra directly, there's no point in comparing 4K, it's going to be very similar. And with 3x, we are getting more detail with just 4K on the Find X7 Ultra as opposed to 8K on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. I'm sure you guys realize this is not supposed to happen, it's supposed to be the other way around. We're supposed to see significantly more detail on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra because you are shooting 8K, so much more resolution. There's like 16 times the amount of pixels, if I'm not mistaken. But it's unfortunate, so very unfortunate over here. And then of course we got the 5x on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. This again gives you 8K, which is, I don't even know what to say about that. But I do believe that the Find X7 Ultra, given that it does have 6x, it might actually have an advantage. Well, turns out I was mistaken. You see, 5x 8K gives you good detail on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra as opposed to the 6x 4K on the Find X7 Ultra. Now this is exactly what I expect when I'm shooting 8K with either the main camera, the ultra-wide camera or the 3x, but it's only with the 5x camera that we're seeing any kind of difference. Also, by the way, there's this weird magenta tint on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, which I have no idea where that came from, but it's there. And now finally, let us take a look at night mode video. So I'd say both are doing fairly well. You know, both have really good sensors, and when you have even a little bit of light, like it's very dark. Around where I live, those street lights are horrible, they're basically worthless. But as you can tell, it looks really nice, really bright, way brighter than it actually was in real life, which is quite a compliment given that we are shooting video at night. But you can also tell that there are quite a few jugs making it into the video on both phones, which is a little unfortunate. And overall, I think with the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, you get a touch more detail in like the brickwork or like the leaves. The finer details are a little bit sharper. And now finally we have slow motion. Now slow motion comes in two flavors on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. We'll get to the good flavor first, but this is the basic one. 1080p 240 works really well on both. You're not gonna have any complaints. That's basically all I can tell you. 1080p 240 at this point, it just works just as well on almost every single device. Then finally we have 4K 120 on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. One of my favorite slow-mo modes because it works so well. You know, you get the 4K, you get the detail boost, and this is an option that needs to be on every single Android and every single iPhone. But it's not. So with that in mind, we're finally at the end of this comparison. I gotta admit, the 8K situation is it's still very ridiculous on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. Like, yes, man, really just bothers me that we have so many options for 8K on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. It is the single most versatile for 8K, but there is no point in using 8K. I don't know, man, it's just... On the other hand, we have the Find X7 Ultra, which for the sake of this comparison, performed just as well, even though it doesn't have any 8K possibilities at all. Which again, it really bothers me. It kept up. Or rather, I'd say the Xiaomi didn't really do anything special with the 8K that it had. I had honestly hoped that they would have improved the situation, but you know, it didn't, and it's horrible. It's horrible to say the least, and very disappointing. However, the saving grace on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra is that it has these pro options: the log video, the Master Cinema, which is just chef's kiss worthy. And honestly, Master Cinema is the one thing that just keeps bringing me back to the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. It is just so good with it, and it just works so well, so easy to color grade. And because I enjoy color grading so much, it's one of my favorite smartphones to shoot with whenever I'm thinking about video. Like this and maybe the iPhone with that one's log features. Yeah, that's about it. Those are the two smartphones that I would think about when I want to take any kind of video, because I love color grading. Of course, if you're not in here for that, well, I'd say the Find X7 Ultra is more than good enough at this point. you shouldn't really think about the Xiaomi 14 Ultra's versatility all that much, especially with 8K, as I mentioned already. But yeah, I'd say the Find X7 Ultra is actually really good, especially if you're just planning on using 4K 30. Very nice colors, very nice contrast balance, and overall just works really, really well. Again, pro options if that's what you're looking for, nothing quite like the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. With that said, I do hope you guys enjoyed, found this helpful, and I'll be seeing you guys perhaps soon enough. Maybe I won't really get another chance to make a video, so I'll just say it right now. I'm moving abroad for my masters, and well, if I don't make a video, I'll see you guys there. Cheers.